What's up, everybody? This time I'm going to be breaking down a more traditional orchestral heroic cue. It's called Anthem of Champions from my A Heroic Odyssey album that came out a few months ago. And you guys know how we do it. First, we'll take a listen to it and then we'll talk about it on the flip. All right, here we go. Okay, so there you have it. Again, Anthem of Champions, and just a couple of basics. So the key, it jumps between E flat major and G flat major, is at 110 beats per minute. And again, like I said, I would call this a more traditional heroic cue. So let's get into it and kind of break it down just a bit. All right. So, like I said, I call it more traditional sounding heroic theme as it's in a major key once. And of course, a lot of heroic pieces that you hear are in major keys. And it has a clearly stated and I believe memorable theme that's fully developed over the course of the cue. That bum 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 bee bum. So in terms of it really having a theme. But let's kind of get into it a little bit. So I start the cue with almost like a 4-bar fanfare to introduce the cue. And it's carried melodically by the trumpets and strings using 8th and 16th note triplets. So let's just kind of start there. I'll just play that for you. So in terms of our trumpets, we have this going on. So we have that. And we have the same thing going on with our strings as well. Sorry, we got autosave going on. All right, get back to our strings. And what I opted to do in my strings here, just for this opening fanfare, is I just opted to use an ensemble patch using the spiccato articulation, and just because I know it, I just wanted a nice full sound for the strings there, so I just used the ensemble patch there. And then for my trumpets, I am using of course the center brass trumpets, and I'm using the trumpets ensemble for that there. Okay, so and then what I'm doing to kind of support that is I have my tenor trombones that are handling pretty much the chords for me. And what we have there is, and I have a combination of long and short articulations just so we can get a little more definition, but and you hear how you can clearly hear the definition, and that's just because I have the short articulation in there. And then so let me show you what those opening chords are there. So what I'm doing is, let me try to get to my piano. So here we go. So what I'm doing is, it's like I said, it's in E flat major, but I start on a E flat sus chord. And if you know sus, it's just raising the 3 up to 4. So that's your regular chord. If you want a sus chord, you raise 3 up to 4. So I start on that sus chord, then I go down to a flat, that flat 7 over the same chord. Then I go down to flat 6 over that same chord. And then I go to a minor 4. Then I go to a major flat 7 chord, a major 2 chord, and then I'm back to that sus. So then, so, and from a chordal or harmonic standpoint, that's what we have happening there. And let me show you on my trombones, the mic position that I'm using for my trombone. So I'm using the BBC tenor trombone, just a long articulation for the chords. And then that I'm using in terms of my mic positioning here, as you see, I have just a little bit of the close mics in it, about 23%. I have the tree almost all the way at 100%, and then I have the outriggers at about 82%. And I do the same thing for the short articulation, but I really kind of like the sound that gives us for our trombones there. Now, the low brass and the timpani are carrying just those notes that I just showed you in terms of, and so we got the bass bones, we have the tuba, and then I'm using, of course, a contra. I'm not using a contrabassoon there, it comes in later. And then I have a master low brass crescendo that are helping us with those low tones. And I also have a sub bass. I'll play that for you later. So you hear that, bam, 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 you know, getting us down to that minor 4 there. And then if we add the timpani on top, hear that, and you hear like some timpani rolls, you know, etc. We got some rolls. You see how we have that. So that's our roll there. And you see how I just use CC1 just a little bit on each of the rolls, just to kind of give the roll just a slight, you know, crescendo on the roll. And then I would always suggest that you have some type of sub bass, orchestral sub, whatever you want to call it, to help support your low end and kind of fill out that, you know, 40 hertz type of area. And that's just I mean, and it's more felt than heard. I would say it doesn't have to be super loud, but it does make a difference. So if we play again our low brass, say our timpani, right, and then now add that sub bass to it, we get this. So that really helps fill in that area down there, like I said, about somewhere around 40 hertz. And I'll actually show you. Let's see if we can get to this screen here. If I open up span, right, and then I just play that sub bass. So see how it's filling up this area here. So it's really dominating is in that, you know, I mean 30, 40 up to 60 hertz. Just really giving us some nice support down there. So just something to be mindful of. Excuse me. Just something to be mindful of as you're kind of filling out what's happening. And then the only other thing that we have going on is we have the horns just providing us with a counter line here, and so just a really, you know, a nice announcement, a nice heroic statement there, right in the beginning of the cue, to let us know, yeah, this is you know, really heroic. And as you guys see here, I do have some different horns layered. So I have the 4 horns from BBC, which are so kind of warm, really, you know, warm and mellow. I do like them a lot. And then I have the center brass horn ensemble. See, much brighter. They have a little bite to them. And this might just be a short articulation that I have here. Yeah. That helps us get that definition that we're looking for. And then I have my 12 horns as well. And that gives us that big sound. And then, of course, when we put them all together, again, we get this. Right. So there you have it. And then I just have some light percussive elements, mostly some snares. And, you know, I do have a glockenspiel kind of working with the violin. So let me just show you that very quickly. So. Oh, I'm sorry. It's here. I was like, why don't I hear it? There we go. Just really light on top. You know, a glockenspiel is not going to be super loud. So here we have it. I mean, just a little sparkle on the top of those violins. But if we hear the other percussive elements, we just really have some snare drum, some piatti, and of course that tam-tam. So if we just, and then some low, just some low hits as well. So we have. And that's just it. And if we hear all the percussion in that opening section. And there you have it. So the entire opening section, again, the opening fanfare to introduce the entire cue. And that gets us really set up for our theme. So in the first half of the theme, I am using my horns to carry the melody, which is super typical in heroic cues. Now I'm supporting my horns with oboe and bassoon. Now, oftentimes from an orchestration standpoint, you'll hear the horn melody supported by trombones. And as an example, like if you guys know the John Powell score for How to Train Your Dragon 2, which I have right here, is a great score. You know, and if you're trying to orchestrate, you really should you know, try to do some score study, etc. But John Powell does the same thing as many composers do. Now, what he does, like in the opening statement of Dragon Racing from How to Train Your Dragon 2, he uses 2 euphoniums instead of 2 trombones to support the horns with the opening statement. And again, sometimes I do use the trombones and the horns, and then sometimes, you know, like in this case, I'm using bassoon and oboe. So it's just various ways that you can layer from an orchestration standpoint. All right, so like I said, so let's hear what's happening with that opening theme, excuse me, from our horns. And then the additional support from our bassoon and oboe. So we have this. And that is the opening theme. And the thing that you also hear is I have the first 2 notes of that is that beautiful dominant 7 leap. Same dominant 7 that Pinar Toprick uses in Captain Marvel. Now, you know, that's all I use is the interval. It's in a totally different key. I think her leap is C up to B flat with her horns. I'm E flat up to D flat, and it's just a totally different melody. But I really love that interval that she used to open up Captain Marvel. Forgive my singing. I don't even know if I'm in the right key. But you guys know, I believe you know what I'm saying. So we had a. So I was close. So yeah, that's the key. And then I go. Then I take it up an octave. You know, after I do that dominant 7 jump there, but just I think a nice. I just like that interval, and I wanted to actually use that interval in this cue. And then the only other thing that we have in this section is we have again our low brass on the first half of this, supporting the melody just with you know, some chords. So and again, our bones are playing the chords, and then we have our low brass just playing the roots. So there you have it. Then outside of that, I wanted you to hear this rhythmic play that we have from our trumpets. So our trumpets are giving us this rhythmic support using, again, the 16th note triplet. So just giving us that support. Now I do have a woodwind ensemble kind of helping us out there as well. and then you'll hear a flute and piccolo flourish on the end of that. Right. So that is pretty much all that we have there. Our strings are kind of resting. I do have this low string thing that kind of churns underneath everything. It's the only thing, I don't know, this rhythm I just wanted in there. It's the only low string doing it, and again, I just kind of wanted that in there. So that's everything really for that opening section in terms of how we structure the first half. Now, when we get to the second half of the first half, I introduce some flutes, some short flutes, and I think oboe, just doing these little runs, and the clarinet. So they're doing this. And basically, it's really more so felt in this particular section than heard. But what they're doing is they're kind of introducing that, and then later on, the high strings come in to support them on that when we get to the second half of the theme. So. So you hear it, you just kind of barely, kind of hear it under there. So then when we get to the second half of the theme, the trumpets join in to really help, our horns and, of course, the bassoon and oboe to really, drive home the theme. So the only other thing that happens is, of course, like I said, we have our trumpets that come in to help us out, and they're so we have that, right? And so if you hear that with our horns, it just lifts it. It just gives us a lift. It gives us a little more power. Which is great. Now, what I do, of course, we have the trumpets doing that rhythm. So since now I've handed off the melody to them, I hand off that rhythm, to continue with the woodwinds. And of course, again, it's not as powerful. But it's still important for that rhythm to be in there. So, and then I also have some short trombones helping us out as well. So, And I'm sorry, I didn't add power longs in there. So it's really like this. So, we still have that kind of that little bit of rhythm from the woodwinds and the tenor trombones. And then the only other thing we add now is to remember that ostinato that I played earlier that was kind of carried by the flute, oboe, and clarinet, this, right? So we had that. So now we add the high strings in to help us really kind of drive that home. So now if we put all that together, Okay, so that now is the second half. So we basically have a lifting, and as you see, kind of here in the percussion, it's pretty much the same, but it feels like it's more because we add those other elements. We add the trumpet on top of the theme. We add those high strings with that ostinato that's kind of driving us, helping, to drive us as well. So, we have our theme, then we have our theme repeated, and now we have our theme developed as we move into the bridge, right? So in the bridge, I modulate to G flat major, and I use the sus5 of E flat, then the 5 chord in the third inversion, which is basically just moving down a whole step. Which kind of serves as a 5 of the new key, and then it gets me down to D flat. And it might be a lot easier if I played it for you. So, we're that's the sus, right, of E flat, and then we go to that chord there, and then that gets us to G flat. And this chord, that 2 chord or that dominant chord over the flat 7, could really serve as a 5, because if I play that over D flat, it's just an altered D flat chord, right? If you hear that, it's like a flat 9, like a 13 flat 9 kind of chord. But I mean, we're not getting into all that. We're not going to dig into those weeds, but it easily takes us, seamlessly takes us into G flat major. So it's a really simple but nice transition to get us into G flat major. And so then when we get into G flat, I just further develop the theme first with the violas and cellos and bassoon. And the very first thing you hear is that dominant 7 leap that we had to open the thing, right? So you hear that now, but it just figured differently. So listen. So, right? So that's the first thing that we hear with our violas and our cellos. And do we have anything playing that with them? No, we do not. So it's just really the violas and the cellos there. So we have this. So we're in G flat major. Now that first leap is actually a D flat up to C flat. So it's the 5 of G flat up to the 4. So it's not the 1 flat 7 that you hear to start the cue, but it's still, we're developing that same motif, that same wadi, but it's just different now. And then we also add the women's choir, just to give us, some beautiful color. Just to give it a little color. And then I really open it up and let it breathe here, as you'll only hear a tuba and very light trombone playing in the brass section. So a tuba is just, nothing 1, 3, 4, 5, nothing, real deep there. But I love the way the color of our trombones change. So we have this. Yeah, just really nice, just really nice color there for our trombones, just with a little quarter support there. And then we add, Oh, I do apologize. So I do have the bassoon with the violas and cellos, and I do like using bassoon with violas and cellos a lot on that melody. So we have this. So we do have that, and so we have the again the bassoon with the violas and the cellos. Get this. Right? And then we add in our string bass. Add a choir. Okay, add our tuba and our trombones. Okay, so the only other thing that we, and of course, our sub bass just to round out the bottom. Right, but outside of that, the only other thing that we have these beautiful runs that are kind of just supporting the theme. And so here we have our violins, and I believe our clarinets and flutes. So we have our violin one, and then we have our flutes and our clarinet. I'm just playing this beautiful, just these beautiful scales kind of against that. Okay, so so there you have it, just something. So as you hear, the theme is developed. We've come from big bombastic hero to more reflective, just kind of more developmental. It kind of switches kind of the arc. Everything is not always going to be up. This could be a moment where the hero again is reflecting on something or something like that. A moment that made them into who they are, or something like that before we get back. So of course, again, so we're in G flat, viola cellos, you heard everything. Second half of the bridge, we develop the theme even more, and we make a transition back to E flat. And I believe we're using that move, the 4 of G flat, and then to the major 2-5, the major 2, and then to the 5 of E flat. So if you remember, just so you can just kind of get your ears in. So we're gonna right, and then when we come out of that, so we got that 4, and then we jump a tritone down to the major 2, and then when gets us into E flat major. So it's just a way to show you how you can easily kind of jump around between keys, but it doesn't sound like you're jumping all over the place in terms of keys. I mean, it sounds very natural, right? And so what we do when we now get to the second half of the bridge and we transition to E flat major, I hand the melody off to the violins, the glockenspiel, and the flutes. So when we get to E flat, we have, first of all, we have this beautiful, harmony between the first and second violins. Hopefully I got it right here. right? So we have that, and then we support that with the Glockenspiel. So we have that, and our flutes. And then what we do, so we had those scales going on, and our clarinet and flute and high strings were playing that scales, right? Those scales, I'm sorry. So now what we do is we hand the scales off to the bassoon, the cello, and who else? That may be it. So let's see. Oh, and the violas. So we just kind of play around with, we're pretty much doing the same things, but kind of, handing things off and sending things, other ways. And I think we also have a clarinet that might be playing that as well. So this is everybody playing the scales. And then what we also do is now we add that rhythmic support that the trombones were doing. Now, since there's a little lift in the bridge, we bring in our muted trumpets to help the trombones. So there you have it. And so if we hear now us kind of transition into E flat major from G flat major, this is what we have. And then the only other thing that I believe you will hear is now we have some flute and piccolo flourishes going up and down. So just scales. And the way that I do mine is I'll do the runs up and the runs down on separate tracks. Because I am using the colors adaptive runs again. So flute piccolo runs, and then you see I have 2 beats, and excuse me, it's a major run, I'm sorry, and I have this going up. And then, you see I have it, quantized as well. And then on my next channel, it'll just be my run down. So same exact thing, except, it's major, excuse me, and it's going down. And that just but it sounds really seamless. And there you have it. And when you hear that within the context, and again, as you hear, very, very light in terms of what's going on in my percussion, but I do add some light percussion as we transition into E flat, just because we want a little lift there, right? But not much. So basically some light snare, some sticks, and of course, you heard the Glockenspiel because they're playing the melody, and like some cymbals, some piatti, etc. So that's pretty much it. So now we're coming out of this more open, kind of further development of the theme, this reflective section, but we have to get back to the heroic. So what we do, I think I just do a 2-5, real simple, and I just hold on the 5 of E flat to set us up, and I do a nice kind of open break to set us up to get us back into the main theme. But I want one thing I want to point out for you, I want you to hear, is when we do get back into this main theme, it's hit and it's really open with everybody. You know, I mean, the theme is stated very clearly, and it's really to try to give us a real triumphant feel. And I also add the male choir to really kind of beef things up. So let's take a listen. So totally open, you got the drum supporting, but just we really want to drive home that theme. And now I have the glockenspiel kind of helping the strings out with that, you know, just to give it a little kind of sparkle on top. And we have now our male choir that comes in. And if we add that with the women, so just really, really triumphant. So again, so we have that nice open theme to kind of just really, hey, we're back. There's no mistaking that is heroic. And then I quickly modulate, believe it or not, back to G flat on the second half of the theme and go back into tempo. And this was actually a great suggestion from a fellow composer of mine and my mentor, Dave Croft, which was an awesome suggestion. We just quickly jump up to G flat, you know, just for a second, go back into tempo, and then we return back to E flat. And I know it just sounds like super complicated, but it really isn't. So if we just take the last half of that opening to just get us into G flat, that's what this sounds like. And then you hear how we're simply using those pivot chords to get us, you know, back from key to key. So it's no different. We did that flat 7, and then to the flat 6 in E flat, and then the major 2. I'm sorry, the major flat 7 to the major 2, and then that gets us into G flat, and then we transition right back from G flat right back into E flat. To try to put a button on this thing. And so basically what we do is we state our theme one more time, and then we go into our outro, which is really just an extended fanfare. It's that fanfare that I showed you on the very, very front of the cue now takes us out to the end of the cue with a nice button. So if we just play coming out of G flat into E flat and into that outro. So we have. And there you have it. So all we did, you know, on the outro is we just kind of developed it a little more, but it's the same exact chord structure. You know, we just kind of have everybody kind of churning and burning on it now. And then we just put a little answer on it here. This. And then we just end with a nice, strong button on it. So, I mean, that is pretty much it. I know I kind of took a little longer, but I really wanted to get inside of it, especially from the standpoint of how to develop an actual theme. You know, you play a theme, and then how do you develop it further, and then really how to kind of jump between keys seamlessly. You know, wherein it doesn't sound really clunky or anything like that. It sounds very, very natural. And then, of course, you guys know jumping thirds is going to sound pretty natural to your ear anyway. So just, you know, at the end of the day, as I always say, I hope that this, you know, helped you out, you know, in your journey. I hope it was inspirational to you. And certainly if you have any questions, you know, hit me up. I definitely answer every thing that anybody writes in the comments. I'll definitely get back to you for sure. And if you found, you know, the video helpful, or you enjoyed it and you'd like to see more content like this, please like, please subscribe. And as always, thanks so much for taking time out to listen, and God bless.